Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I forgot. No, no, no.
No, it's like.
I forgot what it is. But I was doing some research and it's here.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone that is here today. Big shout out to our Mom Plan Action Team, Val, Kyle, team, for providing some nutritious meals for the committee. Thank you to our solicitor's office, Rosa, for being here. And we'll take roll call.
Due to lack of quorum, this can only be a informational meeting.
Thank you. So, unfortunately, we do not have a quorum today. We have 6 out of the 13 members here. This has been a little bit of challenge in the past, so maybe we'll reconvene the group and see if another time works better or what might be ideal. But thank you so much to everyone that is here today. And we will kick off our agenda with item number 1. What was that? Can I take roll call, please?
Councilman Miguel Sanchez,
Present.
Co-Chair Corey Jones,
Present.
Co-Chair Diana Garlington, absent. Kadir Manakaran, present. Alan Williams, Detective David Perez, absent. Absent. Michael Stevens, absent. Robert Bailey,
Present.
James Montero is absent. Lisa Pina Warren's absent. Juan Carter's absent. Michael Hogan,
Here.
PJ Fox.
Present.
6 present, 7 absent, you don't have a quorum.
Thank you. So we'll move into item number 1, which we're also gonna probably continue for further discussion, but if Corey wants to just give a quick overview of what that item entails.
Yeah, so we had a hard time scheduling the representatives, but they gave us a few dates so we can try to schedule them for the next meeting. But we started a conversation around revitalizing a proposal that Gina Raimondo submitted in her budget in 2019. That would create a tax on guns, ammunitions, and shooting ranges, and be able to use that as a consistent revenue for the type of work that we're talking about at this table. There's conversations about how ambitious that proposal is if we restructure an office like Mike's, the Public Safety Brand Administrative Office, and make it something like the gun violence office, like Biden was pushing for states to do. Or if you want to just try to take the small win and just try to get that revenue source, and just put together the most viable bill that we can get through, so we can have that consistent funding stream. So the representatives said they would be happy to carry this bill. They just want to be sure that there's an alliance that is going to help them advocate to make it happen, and that is designed in a way that makes sense for the work that we're doing.
Does anyone have any additional thoughts or comments on that item? Are you guys aware of any other similar legislation? So we technically hold our public comment at the end.
Okay.
So if you could save the question, please.
It's not a question, it's just to answer your question.
And what else? Are you aware of any other similar states
Similar states.
or similar legislation in other places?
I know that there was what was it, Mike and PJ, the victim services money bill.
I don't know what the potential funding, I don't know if any funding was attached. Appropriation wise, yeah, just that they should do that. They should fund it for $30 million, but not how that $30 million was gonna
How you
get
get it,
raised.
yeah. So I think that's one of the challenges is finding an actual revenue source of tax or something to find, some of the initiatives that we will see, like the victim services bill. And I know for other states that have done this, I know Connecticut recently passed this, California recently passed it as well. California was really creative when they passed it, because they mixed a bunch of different things in it in order to get it over the finish line, and they called it like the school safety act, because like half of the money went to school safety models. So you can look at a lot of other states for inspiration on how they were able to build coalitions that were able to get over the finish line. Being Rhode Island and being a small state, our revenue wasn't the same in that tax formula as it would be in somewhere like California, so it's a little different.
So, just the last question I have on this, are you aware, so are guns and ammunition just tax like the regular sales tax, as it is right now?
That is my understanding, and this is an access tax, so this is just a tax over top.
And since this technically isn't like a formal meeting, I think we can open it up for comment in the public.
Well, I was just gonna say that, California, as mentioned, has it, and also Colorado, they use it. So like California, their tax is 11%, I think in Colorado it's only like 4.5%. And you can tax more or less of, say, just guns or guns and ammunition or shooting ranges. But there are, I think, 5 other states that are currently, Maryland, Massachusetts. Can't remember the other ones, but they're also considering it because, of the limited, the federal government's right back on always, sources of income for CDI. It could be not just CDI, hospital-based intervention programs, all kinds of, violence institutes doing, all other nonprofits. But to your point, what would be most important is building the coalition of getting hospitals, obviously there's a couple of TV organizations, but really getting as big of a coalition as possible, to be up at state hospital time and not being for it, especially when there's so much competition, but it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I believe Gina Raimondo's was 6%,
Okay.
but the memo I put together was aiming for like 12%. And I think my projection was that would be like 1.4 million in revenue.
Someone else have anything else they would like to add to item number 1? Nope, all right, then moving on to item number 2. Review of available youth programming opportunities or extravagance. So our council office put together, this, document. Does everyone have a copy of it? This is really just to start the framework and foundation to what would some call a resource guide. I know we've had past conversations, regarding, something like this in the past. I think, was it you, PJ, that brought up that United Way used to do something similar? What was that called?
Youth opportunity guide.
Youth opportunities guide. It's really, it's hard to do something like this because so many programs, especially right now with how our federal money is a little unstable. Some programs, might be open this summer, but not next summer, or just the timeframes are different, or different eligibility requirements. But I think, having something to work with and be able to provide to the youth and other community partners is an important thing that the city really needs or needs to spend a little bit more time on. So this is something that we can definitely add and or remove if needed. So obviously all the rec centers are on here. different, community partner boards are on here. City Year, Boys and Girls Club, Federal Hill House. And then, of course, more like CDI focused organizations are also included here. So yeah, we can have a discussion of this and kind of where we wanna see this go.
So I actually, after our last meeting, I used, AI to start coding, a crime database dashboard. And so I still have to go through with a professional and kind of finalize the code, but the idea is that it'll be able to take all of the data in real time that the police upload. As soon as they upload it, it'll add it to the database, and then you'll be able to analyze it. And see, where the crime's going, the time of day, any of the information that they give us, we'd be able to analyze it. And so, the amount of, infractions certain officers may be having, all that, is kind of organized and parsed through on this platform. I also added to it a resource directory, and what it does is it's using AI to scrape annual reports from nonprofit organizations in Rhode Island. And so I'm hoping, once I kind of finalize and tweak some of the last parts of it and get it pretty updated, I can pass it off to maybe a nonprofit or someone to kind of maintain it and keep it updated. But I think that could be a huge resource and also something that can come out of this committee as a kind of actionable, item that not only, CBOs can use to better have data on the people that they're serving, but also community members can use to find resources in a way that's, in real time, updating those resources that are being posted.
Anyone else have any thoughts or comments on this topic?
Two.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So for the rec centers, they have summer camps through July. They also have before and after school programming. Too. Which is probably self-explanatory, but if we want this to sort of be the start of a larger research, we might want to add that. Under the public health work, we may want to include some of the work the Division of Human Services does with youth, especially like the Mayor's Behavioral Health Coalition, and the Mayor's Youth Prevention Team. These are all sort of school-based interventions, and I think they should be included. And then, I mean, I'll send Isabella some others, but just off the top of my head, I think focusing also on workforce, there are after school programs, especially for the older youth. Just a few that came to mind were CCAP, they do a lot of youth workforce training. PHA, the Providence Housing Authority, has also worked with us in summer jobs. But the others, some of them are also listed here, so. Yeah, those are just my initial thoughts.
The American Job Center on here. That's one too. HHC.
I was just gonna say that I think a list of youth serving organizations that serve youth, but particularly unemployment programs, I think would be smart to add to this.
Is that information sit somewhere or?
Well, we got like a directory for the programs that we have, well, two directories, we have our, job boards through the Workforce Development Services, and then we have the real jobs on directory as well. So I think it's something that much.
It is a great start, right? Very comprehensive, and I think some of what we're talking about is like programming that exists at some of these locations, right? The community libraries, each one of them might have their own slate of programming that's different, or different age groups and stuff like that. And then I know it's not comprehensive, but I know but sports leagues in particular, like the West Side, the football and the, baseball, or we have wrestling, boxing, and a couple of other like leagues, but I know that's not as fixed as everything else,
Yeah.
It's that might,
Yeah, it's almost
another
like,
layer of research.
They beat the streets comes. to
Yeah.
mind right away, like, they do a lot of work, with youth in our city.
Yeah, I know a lot of kids on the south side play a lot of baseball, fall, there's football, a lot, every new team. Yeah, I think urban arts and a couple of other, arts, I think is another one, there's a couple of organizations that do arts stuff with kids.
One time on, voices, action.
Young voices.
What's the last thing, guns,
Play peace.
gloves up, guns down, so yeah, is it okay if folks reach out to you? With different ideas. Isabella, I think, sent us all an email, so we should have. Like, there you go, folks wanna send other guides of information. And then I guess my next question would be like, what do we do with this after that?
Well, I think I could add it to that website and make it really easy, so you can go to a website, there's a directory. And it'll have all the different opportunities, and then what I can do is build the admin panel, so we can go in there and update or change or add stuff, manually. And then, once we put that on an official website, we can try to like promote it as a group. I think before we get to that point, though, it'd be important to have an agency or an organization, probably not profit, because I know do it, we'll put the state agency who help. But having like somebody to carry that on and kind of own it, and then we can help them promote it and spread the word. Thoughts
Are
on
we
that?
also gonna, use this as a tool, I guess you could say, to find, to see where gaps might be happening, or is that?
Yeah, so that was the original idea when I was making the dashboard, so that we can analyze that same data that Doug presented. I wanted to try to be able to analyze that data in the last 20-30 years, right? And be able to analyze it from that perspective of like how crime changes and while also looking at organization, so that's like the original goal, and then I realized, wait, we can also use it to make resources accessible as well.
There's like two kind of things happening here at the same time.
Well, I think we want to get in the hands of like Detective Perez and officers that are interacting with the youth, that before we arrest you, here are some things you can go do, right? So the more people are aware of all the opportunities, and I think it's where the rubber meets the road, and get into all the community center, the programming, and get it out there where youth can find out about this. How do we get it to that? Maybe not the city website, I don't know, but.
Yeah, we definitely probably should have some type of physical printout that we can go to the rec centers, go to the, schools, go to the schools, yeah. And make this accessible, because, different demographics are using a computer versus, physical copy, right?
What's the likeliness of a board having capacity to maintain a website that you're saying?
So it would really just be making sure that the, like if someone has a new program comes up or a program went down, they keep it up or take it down. When I hand them off the website, there shouldn't be much maintenance as far as the code that needs to be done, just making sure that there's updated listings.
Just another thought to, look into the list. There are organizations on here that do it, that have a component to it, so there's not a lot of like Davis House, but there's other reentry programs that maybe should be listed. So specific organizations that do reentry services / educational services.
Would, for like, more like specific conversations, BJ, would it make sense for you, send that to Isabella, or should she just reach out to you, or maybe?
Yeah, feel free to reach out, that'd be great.
I think also based on conversations from the past meetings, when there are personal members here, but so like what's a little bit in some case, but in this group, being very informed about some of the opportunities happening at rec center specifically, be involved, have good relationships with rec center, groups, trying to do this. So I guess I don't know how, what would envision being in, I guess one of the ones like got relationships with rec center residents, but maybe this can be a start. I don't know, I guess I don't exactly know what that would look like, but it.
Yeah, no, so I mean, the idea for a couple months at least was to bring in, the rec director and the superintendent of parks to kind of give an overview of the departments. We currently don't have a rec center, or rec director, so that kind of adds, pickle in the conversation, you could say.
There's a picture of that.
Yeah. So I mean, we could still move in that direction if that's where folks wanna go, but it seems like that's almost like. To have that conversation, I guess, directly with like this resource guy, I think is. Well, too much of it.
Yes, is the goal of that to. I mean, I guess it kind of goes back to what are the goals of this, or the goal, and I guess. Sort of an action item or outcome could be that. You know, we sort of create more awareness of the programs that are offered at recreation centers and. Sort of see how we could sort of bring in CBI principals or training or something like that for their staff. So they sort of are thinking, and maybe they're already doing that, we don't know, we haven't had a conversation with them, but like. If there could be like, sort of an action related to that, or maybe not. Depending on where this group wants to go, we sort of see our outcomes or things to achieve.
I love that idea, like seeing, like evaluating what type of professional development opportunities could, you know, kind of further this work within the channels that are already connected to the people that, this young people that are targeting. You know,
Yeah, cause I mean, that's the reality is that most. Boards or folks on this list are already doing, whether they call it CBI or not, doing some component of the. Principles of CBI and techniques, so. Yeah, I mean, if you guys think that it's on this committee or to make some of that more formal. Yeah, I mean, it's a conversation that we should have. But yeah, I guess like what's becoming very obvious is that this guy. Has different paths that it could take, so I think we should try to figure out. What do we want as a committee with this guy, and maybe leave the conversation of the website separate from now, because I think that's easy to get confused and. Not try to separate that as much as possible for this discussion.
well, I think the kind of direction that the website's taking could also influence the direction we guide, like we can make a guide that's for like, that's like consumer facing for like. The young people, and then we can make a guide that's like for staff members, for police, for all these different people who are interacting. And like maybe we just give them some like, call this person if you need this, like, you know.
Any thoughts, Roger?
Now, I like the idea though, but. And I think we can take that to the rec centers or to the youth programs, to those folks, and maybe we could, find a way to facilitate it to get it started, and then hand it off to them and let them take the lead, and, the young people that are involved in the program. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Remember, we can make that happen. Power, that leadership, you know?
Yeah. PJ, you have experience doing like CPI training, right?
Yeah.
You think that that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can provide more to those most affected, or most likely has, be affected by any of these, it's worth it. I think the rec center is an opportunity. It's about getting the information out there. I think, I was gonna wait till a little later, but there's, I was gonna suggest that maybe we start thinking about a national. Partnering with maybe potentially a national organization, like, so there's, I don't know, have you ever heard of the Milken Institute?
What?
The Milken Institute, down in DC. I've been in conversations with them late in the last month, and they're interested in engaging with Rhode Island, but specifically, I think. Providence, the urban cores, out where they want to focus, and I think I'm just trying to think of. It's kind of related to funding, kind of, taxes, the revenue conversation. I think we need someone to help us really deliver a message.
Yeah,
And I think that's what we've been really needing for a long time. Like, why is CDI important? And what is it? And the numbers, we put it all into nice, and moms, every town, we've done some really great work around it, and there's some new tools that every town is coming out with. That uses AI. But I think we need some help
yeah,
consolidating. And I don't know if the council can authorize some funding, or, to engage. But I think we're also missing a business opportunity in terms of engaging the business community around potentially funding some of this. I don't know the legal ins and outs of how that can happen. There's a lot of, around the country, there's a lot of private, public funds that are created.
yeah. That's what Teddy's doing in Chicago.
Right, so I think, but the Milken Institute seems to be very interested in engaging. And I'm happy to start a conversation with them, like I have, but I wanted to kind of bring it here, but I was gonna save it for a little later.
What specifically would they be able to help with, or what's the mission?
So they're, particularly around funding, and how do you message it towards, funders, particularly business, how do we engage with, both large corporations and small businesses around how do they, investing in this work. But they can also around messaging, report, writing. We need, everyone here is thin, spread thin on a lot of issues, but we need some real focused people, I think, to just do some real writing for us. We can agree, I think we're very capable of brain, dumping everything. We need someone to consolidate it, right? And I think that's how we're gonna push a lot of the legislation stuff forward around this work. There's funds out there, just need to figure out, we're not good at consolidating, we're not good at putting it together and making that case. And I think, and I'm not pushing the Milken, there's Milken, there's Ford, there's, Joyce Foundation, there's LIST, there's a lot of these national organizations that have CBI folks that this is what they do. And because we're Rhode Island, we don't get looked at.
Yeah.
And I think if we are proactive and engage with them, and maybe they're willing to bring some experts in. But we're just disjointed. I mean, Department of Labor, the AG's office, public safety, we've got some pots, but we need somebody to make the case that power over the people with the power. This has to be a priority. It's great that we're considered one of the safest states, but if you only look at the 5 urban core cities in the state, we're right up there. So we and because the headline has changed in Rhode Island. People are we're deemed too safe by DOJ. So the elements, and then so we need someone to help Rhode Island problems, particularly make the case why this has to be invested. We just haven't been able to do it.
What comes to my mind when you mention reaching out to that level is that NAEKC Foundation.
Yeah.
Right, and I think we can bring Vermont from the ground training school to this table. Maybe he can help us access the contact people at that foundation, because they work with state care, children and youth, and juvenile justice and violence is like their national leader. And they have, plenty of work. They education foundation.
And it's not like, it's even every town, you know, like there are. We have to be, I think, more concerted with approaching these organizations and telling them. First of all, saying we've got an issue, we have a problem with with convincing power brokers in the state that this is important. How do we do this? And I was just down in, I was in Chicago a couple weeks ago, I've been in DC for that. And I'm aggravated. I sit at the table and these cities are talking millions and millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah, Chicago,
And
a quarter,
we're just,
a quarter,
we're not considered, the small states, the smaller cities are just overlooked. And they get on the map when there's a real push to attract these organizations. Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island is a great opportunity for innovation, for tech pilots, the testing stuff. And I think either it's this committee, I mean, this committee could be a perfect situation to really dive into these questions. I mean, Corey, I mean, the AI stuff is great, but it's just, it's a small piece, you're one person. And every town has got, have you seen the new Every Town gun tracker, the AI system they have?
It's pretty.
It's pretty cool. I mean, you just type in it and it, what it's doing is pulling, it's not pulling state data, it's pulling media articles on shootings. That's how it's compiling who the victim is, where it was happening, what kind of gun it was, you know, what was the response? It's incredible. You know, and that's just an example of, I mean. And you can do it for right now you can do it, it works across the country, so I get excited when email and talk about this AI database, but the tools exist, we just need to engage on a different level with these folks.
Yeah.
We can't keep hoping that they'll just decide, you know, we can't. Everybody loves moms, and you know, and I hope their voices are great, but they're just a piece of this argument, and they're spinning their wheels too. We need to come to the table and say, this has to be important, we're gonna drive it now, like, we can't be quiet about this. I mean, it's only a matter of time, if the economy starts to tank, violence is gonna increase. Yeah. So we better be ready for it.
yeah, I'm in conversation with Every Town right now to get, to host one of their fellows. So they host fellows for, electives, and then so I'm gonna see if I can get a fellow to help us with some of these initiatives. Which I think would, you know, I was telling them, I said, it's almost like, not only do I get help, but I also have, you know, someone who's assigned to work with me that's a direct liaison to Every Town. We can kind of bring that knowledge and those connections, to the table with us.
You know, yeah. I want to back up on something I just said. I don't know if the economy's gonna tank, I don't think anybody actually knows that, but the gaps are gonna grow immensely.
Yeah.
And when the gaps continue to grow, people are gonna get left behind, and people are gonna become desperate, so it actually doesn't matter if the economy's good. For that local economy.
Yes.
But if the gaps keep growing, we're gonna be in serious trouble, particularly the state, because we're not a financial center. So we've gotta mobilize, and I don't think we have very intelligent people in the state that know that this needs to happen. For whatever reason, we keep hitting the wall on convincing folks to get it done. And I think we need a national, like a Milton, like a list, come in and say, you guys are screwed up, this is how you can fix it.
Yeah,
We have to be open to it.
Right.
That's the other thing, we have to be open.
Right.
Right now, I don't think we're open to it.
And that's the thing, because you're saying, I mean, even just right now, you look at the quality of our public education. You look at quality of our public transportation. look at, just our poverty levels in general in Providence and our surrounding communities, and I mean, I think for the most part, we're lucky at where we're at right now when it comes to violent crime and. You know, it's definitely a national trend that's moving in that direction, but even just on homicides and violent crime, Providence is extremely lucky to be where it's at, it's all of the ingredients for violent crime are in our communities. So yeah, we need to, I think, be as proactive as possible. Is there any state funding right now that has been available for? I mean, is CBI
For what?
for CBI specific or?
No,
I,
250,000, maybe. I mean, there are organizations that get state funded, right,
Yeah.
that do a component to CBI, but we don't have, this is. Granted, this is why I'm at the EP's office, but we have to come together around a real strategy. But to your point about like the particular problems, like John Hopkins did that before. John Hopkins has one hell of a gun violence prevention research piece.
yeah,
Let's just call them up and say, hey, we did this for the education, can you do this for CBI? They'll, like, I'm sure they'll be, we just need, I think that's what we're missing. And every town is great, they're in here, I know the policy people very well, and they're here, but they're becoming. They're becoming like a few of us in the state, where it's just nonstop, it's the only people that we're talking, right? And our voices are getting, it's them again. Like, we know what you want, you want common sense gun laws and all this kind of, we know that. But we don't have the mechanism to get them there. The masses, and that's what we.
yeah, go
And in 2023, I had the privilege to go to Chicago and sit the Renaissance University courses in CBI with Diana Garlington. And we listened to a concept that I had not heard before called detective practice. And that was something that was occurring to me as I was listening today. But the research had indicated that there are protective factors that protect young people from offending in the first place, and offenders who have been released back into society from reoffending. And these have been designated and identified through university research. These protective factors include having a good job. These protective factors include having access to rec programs for youth. These protective factors include having a faith community or a program to keep a person sober. And the protective factors have been identified and ranked, and you can look at them. Those protective factors, in my opinion, should drive this document that's being about today. You ask where are the holes, ask where the holes are. And the protective factors, if education is one of them, if they're not there, then your resources got holes in it. And that's probably good, but it's natural when you bring together a table of talented people as a junior. And everybody is program driven, because you come from the program, the conversation is going to be about, which programs are on the page. The protective factors have to be on the page. This is very exciting for us today. Here this is the CBI driven conversation, and not just going us driven conversation. Because prevention, of course, is exactly what we call ourselves. Very community movement, environment, and hopefully this is where we are all headed to prevent violence. So that's my suggestion to you, is to do some work for everybody who's gonna put us, do more research on implemented factors to orient ourselves around that. And then when we pitch every time, we say, we're trying to implement preventive factors. Where are you? Are you helping us with that? We're trying to prevent the next wave of violence.
obviously what's happening in our state house is kind of what's frustrating right now. So why don't you help us with this? It's happening over at City Council in Providence. Let's do it there. And maybe this will work out and we'll get the kind of help.
Yeah, also, wanna say that, and thank you, Val. The Department of Labor and Training and Governor's Workforce Board, recently released our solicitations for our premier adult jobs training program, Real Jobs. We also just released our solicitations for, our premier youth job training program, Real Skills for Youth. And so, I'll have to recuse myself from all discussions, regarding anything further, with those solicitations, but we certainly encourage, folks to come together and, try to take advantage of those solicitations.
So I guess that's kind of like my next question is like. We know like I was gonna bring that up at some point, is there's funding available and it seems like. There is some community-based organizations around this table that will team up. If it makes sense, for some of that job training program, but. My question is like, are we getting ahead of ourselves by doing that type of work while not having a comprehensive report or landscape of what we're talking about? Can we do both at the same time, like?
So, I mean, I'll just say that, none of the other applicants that we've approved, I don't think have had any type of comprehensive report or. Yeah, so I think.
So, I mean, we all know there's a lack of. Job training opportunities as is in Providence for youth and just adults in general. But. Do we wanna, have I guess a better understanding of like what pockets or demographics and areas? I mean, that's like the really hard thing about operating in such a dire housing crisis where it seems like everyone needs to spread across the city. That's not necessarily specific neighborhoods, at least, there's obviously some hotspots that our police would say, but nothing close to what people would see a couple decades ago. Or PJ, what's like the main thing that you think
I don't think,
you would try to get from part of the federal or more like advocacy at the national level to try to get funding here? Is that?
well, I mean, yeah, that's part of it. I just think, to answer your question, I don't think. I think it's unwise to hold back any opportunity that could be made available right now. Whether that's jobs, the employment programs, whatever, I think we gotta keep moving forward with that, because why would we pull resources away from folks, right, and opportunities? But I do think we need to figure out how to engage on a national level, but yeah, I mean, it's my, where I am in my work right now in the HP's office, as it relates to CDI, is figuring out the best way to move forward with bringing in some national thought leaders that are outside, that can help us that can look at the state on from a different perspective than what we are all seeing. Right, and then guide and put something together to help to guide us on how to build certain systems right here.
So that's not just specific to funding, that's.
Funding is huge. I mean, everything revolves around funding. We need if we want to get more data and more research, we gotta pay for it, right? If we want to have a needs assessment, we gotta pay for it. So funding is a big part of this. But we're not gonna get the funding unless we can actually tell people why we need the funding.
Right.
And not a lot of people outside of this room, I mean, there's plenty of folks, but not in the masses. If you're looking to see what, not a lot of people that understand what CDI action is. And what it takes. Now, I'll say it again, I know for a fact that if we could invest $1.5 million on a state level, we could have an intervention team that can respond to the entire state for violence, community violence intervention. I can't get anyone to listen to me about 1.5 million. In a $14 billion budget, we can't find 1.5 million to put 14 people on the streets in our communities. Who are willing to show up at the hospital at 3 o'clock in the morning. And then connect with victim services and reentry program, we can't do that, that makes no sense, and. I feel I'm personally in a rut right now because. No one wants to listen to me anymore. Right, moms, we've had some really nice things legislatively. But it's still, it's piecemeal. That's the issue in Rhode Island. Chicago, LA, they don't have a piecemeal approach to it. They have an all-in approach and everyone is working towards that approach. How do we get problems? That's for the business community, the nonprofit community, the faith-based community. How do we do that? I think we all have, there are organizers here. We know how to bring people into a room, but how do we actually move it to the next level? I think
I think that's what we're all stuck at.
yeah. So, and I think the best way to do that is to figure out who to bring, to engage with somebody on a, that. This is what they do. What they did in California 2 years ago now. Is unheard of. Like, and everyone told them they weren't gonna do it. There's no way they're gonna be able to pass that, and they passed it. Like, that's the kind of movement we, and
And that was because
I don't know, I mean, we got a lot going for us. Apparently, we're on every, best known list for everything. Why can't, that should give us some clout, and people should wanna help us, but we have to engage with them. We can't wait for them to come to us. And I don't have the authority to do that. Councilman, I don't know how you get the council to do that. But I think the council is really a great place considering this, because you all represent this communities.
So a statewide CBI model, that would sit at the AG's office, or like in a perfect ideal world, where would something like
In a
that?
perfect ideal world, it would exist in every agency. It would be created by the state, by the community, by residents, in some way. And that all exists, the process to do that, develop that, but then it literally is like we hold everyone accountable to this strategy. That's the perfect world. I mean, it doesn't mean where it lives in the beginning, I don't know. If I said the AG's office, somebody else in the state might have a problem with that, right? So. But we've gotta have somebody come in and help us say, okay, listen to everyone, listen to all of us, put something together, and then help us actually sell it. Did I say?
I was just gonna say, to your point about getting people at the highest level to care about it. Since we do have the gubernatorial election coming up, that is a way to say to these candidates. How are you going to support community grants, which mentioned. One thing that I had spoken to Governor McKee about, that other states have done, they're grab at it, was having, that he has an office of either gun violence prevention or violence prevention, something. You don't have to have a ton of people in the office, maybe it's just a couple. They're doing this work. They're making sure all the nonprofits are working in partnership with state agencies, know what the funding is, working with the policy people. Again, it doesn't have to be a ton of people, but it has to be that the governor, makes this priority. So like you said, it's not a ton of people. And maybe, I know, speaking to some of the physicians at the Rhode Island Hospital, they would love to do a hospital-based practice intervention program. They say they don't have money, but Brown, I know they're losing money, but at the same time, they do have a lot of money. They again, it wouldn't be a ton of people that we would need to have a team working at all times in Rhode Island Hospital, only trauma, one hospital. so that would just be another, I don't know, a possibility of, would someone prioritize, but I feel like. As we get to know who these candidates for governor will be. Asking them these questions, do they understand this issue, will they prioritize the issue, will they develop an office, or at least. So I was thinking it's perhaps an opportunity to get someone who. Will look at this differently than maybe. Has.
And I 100% agree with it. If we're talking about like, how do we do that? How do we get an office of gun violence prevention in Providence?
Yeah.
I mean, if this is a Providence committee. Right, like, and fund it. And I think, my thought, just, well.
May I add, it's about community education in CBI. And in order to get the public to care about CBI, we've got to do community education, get them to value it. So, Douglas McCormick, who was here at the last meeting, spoke about his research, and an analytic framework about CBI programs in Providence. He and I have been working on an article for the Providence Eye about current trends in gun violence in Providence and CBI in Providence, and how there's a mismatch between our CBI resources and where gun violence is currently happening, the value of CBI. To get it out there in the community, what it's all about, how it needs to be funded consistently. And I'm working with editors at the Providence Eye right now, and hopefully we'll see that article in Providence Eye in a few weeks, I'm hoping. So we talk about a lot about these things in here, and I think it needs to get out, knowledge about it, needs to get out to the public sphere too.
To that point. Remember my thought was about hospital, right? You mentioned hospital-based programming. We in this room understand that CBI, that community violence is a public health issue, but nobody else in the state understands that on the level that this room does. And the hospitals, physicians, emergency room doctors, they understand it. And it is an economic issue. I don't know if it's every town or if it's Giffords. One of them has the one you can type, go on it, you put in a homicide, and it'll tell you how much it costs. And you say it is an economic, it's an issue that can cut across divides because there's a ton of money at stake. No matter what happens, in whatever direction you go, positive or negative, there's a lot of money at stake. If we can prevent less shootings and homicides, hospitals may not be struggling the way they are in the state. Like, it's a public health issue. We have not made the argument, a real argument, why this is a public health issue.
We really should be doing like a listening tour. Like school board is.
One of the things we did with the Casey Foundation here at Rhode Island Division was, and it was targeting that disproportionality and disparities in child welfare with Black and brown children and youth. Right? So we devised a stakeholders roundtable, and we had everyone at the table for public health, the director of state director of health, the director of DCYF, police chiefs, local, state. Law enforcement, every stakeholder piece that you can think of, and we included kids time because they bring the data to the table. So once they understood what we were looking for, they went to work and brought it to scale for us. So I don't know how people feel about that, but I think it might be important for us to start with something like that. And then out of that, we can do the national or do it simultaneously, but that was really effective in getting the awareness and the education out to the communities about how bad those disproportionate disparity numbers were. And that's all around social determinants, economic, health, you name it. All of the social determinants were discussed And the numbers were spit out by kids count, and we had everything to our disposal. The foundation decided to stop their direct service work. Just be a grant making philanthropic body, so that's where that ended. But we allowed one.
Yeah, and, one suggestion I had made earlier, in our committees was that we come up with a list of questions. And then formally invite all the different directors of the state agencies, and try to just like build partnership with them, right? See like what they're doing already, and then almost evaluate like what they're doing in this space. And then come back to the table and say like, how can we connect these things? Like where, are our strengths and where are our weaknesses? How can we strengthen these things? Because the state agencies have a ton of money, and like I know our real jobs program is a discretionary pot. Right, like this is a discretionary pot where if like the person who's evaluating the form says this is something that I think is an important or need, they can support it, right? It's not like there's just these criterias, right? And so we need to figure out where those discretionary pots are and then have conversations about how are they prioritizing those dollars, and then maybe see if we can get them to prioritize it around this work. Which sounds like to me what you're saying.
Absolutely.
Corey, I 100% agree with that. If I'm, just to bring it back to Providence.
Yeah.
Can we do that in Providence?
I think that's what
Can we ask housing, what money are they? What money is obligated to youth programming or to, housing? Reentry folks, you know what I mean, like, if. I don't wanna. I know what I'm doing in terms of how I'm talking right now, like, but I'm thinking Providence. Like Providence, everything in the state revolves around Providence, and that includes violence. If someone gets shot here and they go to Newport and they're sitting in Newport, retaliation will happen in Newport. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
So if we just pull back for a second and just look at Providence. How do we get an office of violence prevention here?
Yeah.
That can then engage on that level, on the state level, like a dedicated team. Is. But the Department of One's sauce. But, trust me, so it's like, like, how do we get this, because the province would be the example for the other cities and for the state.
Yeah.
But I'm concerned right now, at this moment, I'm just concerned about what can this committee do to move Providence forward in this area? If Providence starts to move forward, the state will follow.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens.
I mean, so it seems like we gotta. Hire some people and transition this advisory council to a board of that department. I'm trying to like think of like, Para has that, obviously, Para has a board.
I mean, the office has to be created, but I don't know if that's I love both sides of government here in Providence. I will be on the record as saying that. I don't know how that happens without both sides coming together, and I know, like the mayor's office, and I know that the city council, this is an important issue to them.
Yeah.
I know that. I believe that. But if we're gonna move it forward, we've got to invest in it, and I think starting an office of, doesn't matter, Office of Gun Violence Prevention, Intervention Prevention. They can do this. This should be falling to us to do this.
Yeah.
Right? And to your point, Councilman. They can, this office needs resources or needs brainstorming or whatever, that's what they can come to, they come to the board, and says, hey. We gotta get this guy out, or help us find resources, like, that's different, but there needs to be someone concentrated on this. That has the authority to act, And I just don't know how or defer to
elected officials to figure all that
I
out.
don't know how, it's just funding. Right, like.
I mean, it's gonna, and obviously, it's gonna add to a budget. But is there existing funding already? That,
So as a finance member, I will say there's always money.
yeah.
Whether we wanna admit it or not, I mean, last year, while a higher freeze happening, the finance team came to. the Finance committee and was like, oh, we have $500,000 to pay, $1,000 bonuses to certain union members, like, no. I'm like, so we're talking all this like fiscal, the stress and we just come up with that much money and get go over budget here. So I mean, there's always money, is the thing is about the political will. That's like going back to the conversation that, started this last conversation, is we can, provide all the reports and data to our leaders. But if the political pressure and will isn't there, then they look the other way and move on with other agenda items. Which is the harsh reality of politics. But yeah, I mean, I think specific to this conversation, I think, next step would be having a meeting with council leadership and the mayor's office and try to come to an agreement on where that might sit, because the Smart administration definitely is supportive of this one, we have folks from the administration, we have folks from the police department, on this committee. It's actually, taking nice concrete steps, and I've always said, like, I think we can, try to find funding for a staff member to do a lot of like. The legwork, it's been falling on different council staff at this point, but. To give it the true attention and work that is required, I think it really does need to be its own. Office with its dedicated staff members, was.
You could put it on this committee. If if the will, if the people, the leadership can come together and say, yes, this is something we want to do, put it on this committee to figure out, and make a recommendation. But, it just needs to, it needs to happen.
Are there, I mean, I'm sure there are like promising examples of local municipal, like, are there some that come to mind? That like maybe we could look at
Well, yeah,
before the next
Every-
meeting?
I mean, LA, Chicago, and, what's New Mexico? Name of major city, New Mexico, Albuquerque.
Oh,
I mean, there's an office of violence prevention in most major cities. And Delaware's got a great one, has a great office. I mean, they're Colorado, Washington State. They all have,
Yeah,
big cities have really great,
Hartford, New Haven,
Yes.
Portland, St. Louis.
Boston has great one.
All. And then there's about 10 states.
I mean, I can get to you.
yeah, that's good.
And the other thing is AG's community violence prevention unit, which you're looking at, is, we're members of the National Offices of Violence Prevention. And the resources there are huge, and they wanted to, they're working with our office to figure out how to approach this, and right now I'm kind of, they want to come in, they can help, like I'm saying that's a resource to looking at a office prevention. And where it lives, I don't know, public safety kind of makes sense to me, And it's about us, it's just a focus, housing, rec. Public safety. Why am I blanking on all the city departments, right? Like, they all work towards, they're all working off of one document, like one strategy. So it's not disjointed.
And I know some cities have offices that are doing that same work, but they might be named something different, like in
Yeah.
Atlanta. They have an office in their health department that does hospital violence prevention work. right? But they're not called the gun violence office, but they're doing gun
Yeah.
violence work, right? And then, and they were specifically, they strategically did that so that extra data wouldn't be, it was, so that extra data is like secured the same way that they, secure personable
Yeah.
identifiable
It
information.
once, you're, speaking of what Corey's been on about the data. We have, Providence Police has really good data.
Mhm. That's when I
And
started.
they've worked really hard over the years to compile, to put a system in place that's really good. To the point, I think they just drive by a house, they can tell you what happened,
Yeah,
so automatically, the car tells you, that's really impressive. So the data is there, but there's no, it's outside groups asking to see. If it's an entity within the government, an Office of Gun Violence Prevention that has access to that data, then our community organizations don't have to be spinning wheels and, wondering if we can get permission to do it. They they'll get the access to it. This was not my intention today.
But it's good.
I'm, there's a level of, I'm at a point. of
I think
frustration.
all our changes, like, when it comes to this specific
I'm
one.
sorry.
But there's a lot of people in this room right now, and those who are also on this committee, that we should be able to help you and others in Providence, elected officials. Understand it. And then have developed the courage to make it happen. And I will say it again, I 100% believe in the mayor's office and in the city council, this is an issue that both are extremely passionate and caring. So I think the heavy lift will be organizing and structuring.
Yeah.
And how do you fund it without potentially taking money out of Providence housing or what have you. Like, how do we do this? We all know what the city is facing. What's happened, there's reason for that. The money is gonna be the issue, but if there's the will to figure it out, I'm really convinced that this can happen.
okay.
Today was your turn.
Sorry?
Today was your turn. So let it all hang out.
Does anyone else have any comments?
That's one thing, for anyone to between the mayor or the city council on this idea. A safe city is also a city that people want to visit. So then the police department came out with the great news of, about the safety of the city. Woman, Kristen O'Donnell, who's head of Providence World Prevention District Bureau, posted that on LinkedIn because, that makes her job easier, right? And a huge part of what so many people are trying to do is get people downtown and get people to, and so it's really an economic driver. So as much as PJ said, it costs us a lot of money. So it also is gonna help us make a lot of money and promote the city in a really positive light. So that's just another, argument for why, it's worth the investment.
That was a great pitch.
And I mean, like, the truth is, the reality is that like council leadership and the mayor are both on page already, like, the mayor doesn't need someone to pitch that to him, he's, any opportunity he has to promote the city and the good things happening. He does, and he also, understands that, I think he's a little more old school in the sense of, police funding, being a big part of safety, public safety. But he's also very, forward thinking and open minded when it comes to understanding like the root causes of crime and investing in other programs and, so yeah, I mean, I know the council leadership is definitely there, and I think the mayor's team is also there, honestly speaking, and pitching it in a way that even if violent crime is down, doing this proactive work, I think is where we're really gonna see the, for lack of better words, return on investment, in keeping our community safe.
Sorry, to that point, yes, violent crime is down, but to folks that are in the neighborhoods where shootings and homicides still happen, it doesn't matter if it's down.
Right.
And that to me is why this is where this work sometimes gets lost on a bigger level, is that it's gotta be community centered. Like, and I know the council, and I know the mayor understand that. It's just making sure that that does not lose, yeah, yes, violent crime is down, it helps everything. But there's still a ton of trauma, there's still people being shot, and that wears on the community.
Oh, yeah.
I just throw one thing, I've been totally quiet because I've been listening first, time I didn't hear from you guys. So it's wonderful to be here, and I brought sandwiches. Thank you.
You're always welcome.
Yeah. By the way, big folks, that's what is GEO at that, so yeah, you go to Saturday, yes, sandwich. Every time it's mentioned a bunch of times. And I guess what I'm here to tell you is these two ladies are constant presence is here, and I hope to be more of a presence. I actually do towards the state also on Wednesday, so it's not confused. But what I will tell you is that, you know, to the degree that we can bring every town resource, whether it's an electronic resource or see it's sort of like a gun violence archive thing, but it's AI driven as well. Or even best practices across the country, or, you know, whatever, you know, this really is a top priority for all of us, all of us. Community violence, you know, it's great to pass laws to get certain sorts of weapons, you know, make sure people out there guns and everything. But if we can stop it from happening before they're needed, that's what we're all about tonight. So, to the degree that we can help, and help bring the other talent and kind of resources and knowledge that we have, the conversation more proactively. Appreciate it. Hopefully.
Will join in, but I'd be happy to speak with the neighbor about this issue. You know, I thought about prevention frequently, and it works out okay. Corey knows that the mayor and I don't see eye to eye on transportation, or anything, but if we be talking about it, we may not really be.
Councilman, I think it's, to be frank, I think it's on you to try to to figure out the strategy with the council and how to move forward. I think everybody here's got your back, and was willing to help you do it, but I think it would be nice if that was the next step, was just, how does it act, what is the next step? I think sounds like we're in agreement that this could be a very viable next step, or how do we support you and the council and the mayor's efforts to try to do something on a much larger scale.
Yeah, so I mean, I can definitely bring it to my colleagues, and you know, the logistics part is gonna be the next part of the question, is how many staffers and what can we do in the meantime before next budget season. We just wrapped up a budget season, but I don't want to wait until next budget season to, you know, fully kick something off. So definitely trying to see where we can find some funding in the meantime. And then the logistics aspect of opening up that office or that department, whether it falls under the council or if it's under the mayor's administration. Because like the city's clerk office, the treasurer, the auditor, like those all kind of report to the city council. So I think we can just start an office ourselves without the mayor's you know, input, but we don't want to necessarily, you know, do that. We're gonna need the mayors and the police departments buy in on this office. So I mean, it's gonna take those conversations, you know. The police is definitely gonna have, you know, certain opinions about it, whether, you know, positive or more concerns. I know there's a lot of like internal friction, you could say, with an organization like Para that oversees them, but this wouldn't necessarily oversee them, I think it's working, you know. Side by side, to a certain degree. Yes,
CBI reduces police violence, the violence that police receive by 37%. So this work makes their life safer.
yeah,
I think if you were to,
so I mean, it's just a logistical question at this
Yeah.
point, to be honest.
but if you got leadership
Yeah.
on both sides to agree. Let's go down, let's go down this avenue and explore. Well, well, there's six of, well, there was six of us. But I think this committee could be that platform to give, to put something together.
Right.
To, you know, and then let the powers to be to hash it out, but let it, put that research, put that development on us. I think we would like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll definitely give us something.
But I just think the buy-in, I think the formal, yeah, where we wanna pursue this in a meaningful way. Have to
So,
come,
do you think there needs to be a dollar amount? Attached to this ask, obviously the more the better, but what's like the minimum thing? Before next budget season, you think? 300,000-400,000 that you think we can do
I don't
something?
think we can do that much.
I mean, is this just staff really?
Yeah.
Is it how much is that?
I think I would tend to.
3 full-time staffers maybe,
I
yeah.
don't think it's that.
I think you need, I think. This is just my thought off the top of the head. If we put together a structure, what the office will do. Then we put the dollar, in. What do you do to accomplish these goals, this task of this office, what will need to happen? But I would agree, you're probably not gonna need a lot of. Less, let's just say, less than 500.
Yeah, because it's mostly coordination.
Right.
Yeah.
It's mostly a person's time, like just imagine any one of us, like, we know the partners we need to bring together, we know that. We reach out to, you know, one person with a assistant or something, but
But it's structurally, like, we need to get clear on what the mandate is of the office. And then figure out what it would cost to meet that need. Roles, responsibilities,
I guess,
how do they work with para, how do you work with public safety, you know, that, I think it really puts the dollar amount to it. Right now, there's no structure to,
What's the timeline of funding this?
because I think the other thing too is like. Not, I think, especially in the interim, is figuring out. I think we all agree that in principle, this is a good idea, and we should work towards that, but I'm curious if there are other staff. I know most departments are probably understaffed, but is there a staff member at public safety or at para whose sort of job already sort of includes elements of the people we want to staff, and is there a way to sort of start with them initially and see how that works? And I agree that it mostly is staff time. But I also feel like a lot of our discussions have centered around the fact there isn't a lot of funding for CBI. And so we'll have a staff member and maybe part of their job will be to find funding, but it also feels a bit unfair to sort of ask them to do all this work without a guarantee for funding as well. Especially if we want to sustain this long term. You know, coordination is important, but it feels like some of that's happening and it exists in a capacity, and I think sort of, as Peter was saying, defining a scope of work to make sure that we are doing this, that it is impactful. And addresses some of the gaps that have come up in our discussion, and addresses many of them, but it still doesn't address the funding gap.
I mean, I would argue that there is funding for CBI, it's just fragmented or like, you know, not necessarily being like called CBI and following CBI, like evidence-based practices, but it's a CBI adjacent, right? And they're trying to get to the same goal as CBI, and they could use some help in reoriented, because there isn't a cure violence model, they just use existing, you know, they have funds for their team, but they're using these existing programs, like our American Job Centers are the most robust career counseling systems in the country, right? Everybody has these, you know, AJCs, but are those staff, you know, trained to work with people who are in the reentry population or these populations, right? Are they Do they have a list of employers that are willing to take people who have a record, right? And these are like conversations that like our department has had, individually with employers and like use our existing revenue to try to get them to buy in. And it's worked, it's been successful. They tell us at first, we don't take those people, and then they're like, wait, give us more of them. They work longer, they work harder. The people I get on the street just turn in and out, right? So like, I think a coordinator could, even without extra funds, make that happen, yeah.
I gotta take someone to the DMV, so I gotta wrap this up shortly. My day job responsibilities are calling. And getting someone to DMV these days is no easy task, so. That appointment, to T, but back to the point, I think we could always find, someone in the city. That is doing this work or can do a certain aspect, but I think just the symbol, I guess you could say, that it sends to not only our state partners, but to national folks, that Providence has a dedicated office for this work. It's something that we're lacking extremely right now. There's not one office in the state of Rhode Island at any municipal level or state level that is working on gun violence prevention. That's like the harsh reality that we're all looking at. And I think until we take that step, to a certain degree, we're gonna be spinning the wheels, we're gonna be in a hamster wheel, having these conversations that are kind of secluded from everything else. So I'll definitely bring it up, and definitely gonna push on my side, and I'll reach out to the mayor's leadership team, including the mayor himself, to get their initial thoughts and.
I think we put everything on the table to figure out how to get it done. I think the direction has to come from leadership on both entities.
And I recommend like, let's bring in the different city agencies and see what they have, or, who could be that person that may be able to help us with some of this work. And they have an adjacent role, right?
I think that's that's the conversation. I think that's the conversation after we get. Like, yeah, do this, then we can figure out what this community's process would be to develop to help make a recommendation from. That's where I hope we can stop.
Yeah. Does anyone have any closing remarks? Awesome, so thank you everyone so much for
Thank you for lunch.
flexible. Thank you so much for lunch, thank you to council staff, thank you to the solicitor, thank you to the attorney. Thank you guys for stopping by.
That's the PK when you go over here.